Have you ever wondered what happens when you live inside a perfect painting, only to discover that the canvas was made of lies? Our story begins in Havenwood, Vermont, a town so small you could drive from one end to the other in 10 minutes. A place where people didn't lock their doors, and every morning the smell of warm apple pie from Mrs. Harper's bakery filled the main street. This is where the Blake family lived. John Blake, a talented architect who had designed almost every house in Havenwood. His wife Linda, an exemplary teacher who had educated the children of dozens of families. And then there was their daughter Mia. At just 16, Mia was not only beautiful but an artist. She possessed a unique talent that no one could explain. Mia could see the emotions and hidden truths within the lines of a drawing. Her paintings were not just art. They were a diary of the most genuine feelings. Mia could capture a storm with a few simple strokes or a deep sadness in the eyes of a stranger. Her talent, which seemed like a gift, turned out to be a curse. The tranquility of Havenwood shattered on a chilly autumn morning. Mia Blake vanished. No clues, no note, no sound. Just an open window and an unfinished painting on her easel. The case was assigned to Detective Daniel Carter. In his early 30s, he was already famous throughout the region. He was once a star in his field, but that fame was just a facade. In reality, Daniel had lived with an obsession for years. He had missed a crucial clue from a victim's drawing in a previous case, a mistake he could never forgive himself for. He vowed he would never overlook another small detail again. As he stood in the Blake family's living room, a heavy silence hung in the air. John and Linda bowed their heads, their faces filled with grief. The whole town pitied them, but Daniel, with his experience, saw something else. He saw an unusual calmness, a perfectly choreographed performance of sorrow. This wasn't a family who had just lost their daughter. These were two actors presenting a play they had rehearsed for a long time. And just as Daniel was about to speak, a faint whimper startled him. That painting wasn't done by her. Someone faked it. Those were the words of Mia's mother, Linda. He forced her to destroy the real drawing. She saw his secret in that picture. That unexpected confession opened a door to a shocking secret that only one person could truly see: a Labrador named Buddy. Many people only saw a docile Labrador with a soft gaze, a dog content to rest by the fire. But Detective Daniel Carter saw a survivor. Buddy wasn't a hero in the classic sense. He was a rescue. Found malnourished and terrified, his past was a dark, unspoken story. A car door slamming, a man's angry shout, a long, lonely night. These were the fragments of a trauma that left him terrified of loud noises and new people. The only person he trusted was Daniel, the man who had brought him home. Buddy didn't bark. He didn't jump or lick your face. He simply existed, a quiet, wounded soul. This is why when Daniel brought him to the Blake house, he didn't expect much. But as they stepped inside, a shiver ran down Daniel's spine. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and staged sorrow. While the grieving parents performed for the cameras, Buddy did something unexpected. He didn't whine or sniff for Mia's scent. Instead, he walked with a determined grace straight to the living room centerpiece, a large, abstract painting hanging above the fireplace. He stared at it, unblinking, his body rigid, every muscle tense. He wasn't looking at the art. He was looking through it. Then he moved to an old armchair beside the painting, scratching gently at the leg, before looking back at Daniel with a silent, pleading urgency. It was the same look Buddy gave him every time he saw a car that resembled the one he was found in. A silent scream. A memory of pain. Daniel felt a jolt of recognition. He had seen this before. Years ago, on the case of a missing girl named Sarah, the very one that still haunted his nights. A single cryptic drawing was the key, but he had dismissed it. The system had failed Sarah, and in his heart, Daniel knew he had failed her too. He wasn't going to make that mistake again. He was going to trust the animal who had never given him a reason to doubt. Just as Daniel moved closer, he saw it. A tiny, nearly invisible smudge of black ink on the leg of the armchair where Buddy had been scratching. It was nothing, a detail no one would ever notice. But then he saw Linda Blake, Mia's mother, subtly move her foot to cover the spot. A flicker of panic crossed her face, gone in an instant. A polished, perfect facade was cracking. At that moment, Daniel understood. The answers weren't in the woods or on the trails. They were hidden in plain sight behind a facade of normalcy and grief, guarded by a secret that a dog with a broken past of his own had just brought to light. The real investigation had just begun. Linda's confession hung in the air, a whisper that shattered the silence. It wasn't a plea for help. It was a desperate, panicked admission. Her eyes darted from Daniel to the abstract painting on the wall, and in that moment, Daniel realized the game was changing. It wasn't about a missing girl anymore. It was about a family's deepest, darkest secret. Linda quickly retracted her words, claiming she was just grieving. But Daniel had what he needed. He ordered a forensic sweep of the armchair. The lab reports came back with what they thought was a dead-end traces of a specific type of art ink. But Daniel's mind flashed back to Mia's bio. She was an artist. The ink wasn't out of place. But the ink wasn't what Daniel was looking for. He knew that the human mind under pressure often makes the most obvious mistakes. He ordered the lab to test the ink against the painting. And that's when they found the anomaly. The ink on the chair didn't match the paint on the canvas. It matched the high-quality professional-grade architectural ink used for blueprints. The painting wasn't just a painting. It was a lie. A cover-up. It was a masterpiece of deception designed to hide the truth in plain sight. Daniel returned to the Blakes' home this time not as a compassionate detective, but as a predator on the hunt. He cornered Linda, showing her the forensic report. He didn't ask, he stated, "You knew what your daughter drew. You know where she is. And you know why your husband is lying." The facade finally crumbled. With tears streaming down her face, Linda confessed. Mia hadn't run away. She had discovered something terrifying, something that had been hidden for years. Mia had found an old journal and a series of cryptic drawings belonging to another girl, Sarah, a teenager who had vanished from a neighboring town 5 years ago. Mia, with her unique gift, had used her talent to not just interpret the drawings, but to piece together a map. The drawings weren't dreams. They were blueprints of a hidden place. A place that connected Sarah's disappearance to their family, and specifically to her father. The drawing Linda had seen and was forced to destroy wasn't a piece of art. It was a blueprint of their own house, with a secret room hidden within the walls. A room that John Blake had built. As Linda's story unraveled, Daniel's own past came rushing back. The girl from his cold case, the one whose drawing he had ignored, had been Sarah. He had the answers all along, but he had dismissed them, and it had cost a girl her life. Now he wouldn't fail again. He had to find that room, find Mia, and bring John Blake to justice. The clock was ticking, and the shadows were getting darker. Linda's confession had set off a seismic wave, sending shockwaves through the seemingly perfect facade of Havenwood. With a team of officers swarming the Blake house, Daniel led them directly to the false wall in the basement. A secret room that only a dog's instinct and an artist's drawing could have revealed. The anticipation was a physical force, a knot of dread and hope tightening in his gut. They tore down the wall, and the hidden space was finally revealed. But it was empty. The silence that followed was heavier than any cry. The air rushed out of the room, and with it, the hope Daniel had clung to. He felt the familiar bitter taste of failure. The officers exchanged glances, a collective sigh of defeat. "Another dead-end detective," one of them muttered, already turning to leave. But Daniel's eyes, trained to see what others missed, refused to give up. The room wasn't empty. It was a canvas, and Mia had left a final message. Taped to the inside of the door was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a ransom note or a cry for help. It was a complex, meticulously detailed map. Not of a road, but of the town's entire sewer system, with a single path highlighted in red. A secret escape route. Mia hadn't been a victim in here. She had been a silent soldier, a fugitive in her own home, preparing for a final stand. Then came the real bombshell. Wedged into a small crevice beneath a loose floorboard, Daniel found a USB drive. A wave of cold dread washed over him as he saw the single video file titled "For Detective Carter." He plugged it into a laptop, the screen lighting up to reveal Mia's face, pale and tired, but with a fierce light in her eyes. "Hello, Detective Carter," she whispered, her voice a calm, steady counterpoint to the storm in his mind. "I know you're looking for me, but I'm not running. I'm hunting." She explained that after discovering Sarah's diary and its cryptic drawings, she had used her unique gift to decipher them. They weren't simply the ramblings of a troubled girl. They were blueprints to a dark network. Mia hadn't been the only victim. She had found evidence of a chilling operation, a ring of collectors who preyed on young girls with special artistic talents, not for ransom, but to steal their genius, their very souls, for a twisted clientele. Her father, a man the town saw as a pillar of the community, was the architect of it all. The video ended with a stunning plot twist that took Daniel's breath away. Mia had found one of her father's accomplices and had lured him to a specific location, a place he thought was a safe meeting spot. But Mia wasn't walking into a trap. She was setting one. Her final message was not in the video, but on a letter taped to the back of the USB. It was written in invisible ink, a final piece of her artistry that only a special light could reveal. The words were simple yet powerful. "I won't run. I will fight. I'll use my gift to bring them all into the light." Daniel understood. This wasn't a missing persons case anymore. This was a war. A war that a 16-year-old girl, armed only with a pencil and her courage, had bravely decided to fight on her own terms. The hunt was on, and this time Daniel had a partner, a silent, unwavering Labrador. With Mia's map and clues, Daniel and his team located the girl and John Blake's accomplice. The chase was tense and dramatic, but thanks to Mia's meticulous preparation, the accomplice was trapped and apprehended. John Blake was arrested in his office, his perfect facade crumbling completely. The news spread like wildfire, burning away the peaceful veneer of Havenwood. The world finally knew the truth. John Blake wasn't just a kidnapper. He was the head of a sinister network that profited from the talents of young girls. He was sentenced to life in prison, and his organization was dismantled. Mia's story went global. She became a symbol of courage and resilience, and her art took on a deeper meaning, inspiring thousands. Daniel, after the case was closed, decided to resign. He no longer wanted to work within a system that had once failed a victim like Sarah. Instead, he founded a psychological support center for kidnapping survivors, using his own story to help others find hope again. Buddy, the silent hero, finally found his true home. Mia adopted the Labrador, and together they began a journey of healing. Mia's emotional wounds were slowly soothed by Buddy's unconditional loyalty. She started drawing again. The first portrait she completed was of Buddy not as a sad, wounded dog, but as a courageous warrior with eyes full of love. And as the video draws to a close, we see an image of Mia drawing with Buddy, resting peacefully at her feet. It's not just the end of a case, but the beginning of a new life filled with hope and healing. This story is a powerful reminder that courage can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes our most loyal companions are the ones who cannot speak. If Mia and Buddy's story touched your heart, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss the incredible tales of friendship, courage, and hope that we share every day. And what about you? Do you believe in the instincts of your furry friends? Share your own stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them.